Okay, so you represented a lot of people before Paul. Did you represent writers also?
Yeah. I kind of focused in on, when I had the agent, when I was, co-founder of the agency and co-owner of the agency, I started to focus in on what I thought was the shortcoming in our business design, in the sense that we had wonderful talent agents. Joel Gottler, who's now my partner, was my partner then. He had the books nailed down. I had Candace Lake, and we had Ursula. All these wonderful people who all had writers. Don't forget, I was making the transition from actors, and the thing that really kind of, affected me the most at that point of time, and I had an aptitude for it also, was the directors. So, whether it was Brian Singer at one time or Andy Davis, I still represent Andy now, but in those days, we had a really formidable directors list. And again, I was fortunate. I had Ron Howard on Happy Days, and I took him into, all Eat My Just and Grand Theft Auto and all that stuff. So all of a sudden, I became, in a certain way, in the community, the go-to guy for directors. And so I would say to you that I probably defined myself in terms of my career, directors first and writers second, if we're talking about the, a very realistic viewpoint about, where I am in the marketplace and what I've done in the community. On the other hand, I feel very fortunate that there are, some writers, because I look after like Bobby Resco, for example, but I have some wonderful British writers and I have some wonderful American writers, but I've always had a feeling that I like to really know everything about what makes a movie and what makes a television program. And so even in those days, we had line producers, we had director photographers as part of our below-the-line scheme, because it was my appetite that was feeding that. I wanted to really understand how the whole process worked. And I'm like a kid. You could still feel it. I still have the same passion and fascination. As much as I know, every day feel like I still have so much more to learn. It's never enough. It's like an empty well. You keep putting it in there, it just keeps going. You go, where can I ever fill it up? No. So, this issue about writers is that in our, at our office right now, whether it's, James Elroy or Michael Connolly or Richard Russo on the one hand, or, Lionel Chetwynd and Dan Gordon. So, we've had a really good cross-grade at this particular, I would say, place at my career in my office environment, where the people around me all like me have more than 20 years, so we're able to have a kind of a mature point of view and have more mature writers, and once in a while take somebody young and start like a matrix nurturing them up. But, one more time just saying is that my emphasis had been more on the directors. So if you could have it, most difficult thing to do in the motion picture and television business is what? What do you think is most difficult? Breaking in. Well, I think breaking in as a director is the most difficult. What do you think is the second most difficult thing to do? A director getting his or her second assignment. That, I think, is the most difficult. I think it's more difficult than acting. I think it's more difficult than writing. I think that directing is the most difficult of them all. Now, that's only my point of view. No, this is not about anybody having to agree with me. I'm just saying from my interpretation of the enormity, because directors have to be on that set every minute, and they literally don't get more than 4 hours sleep. Any director who's getting more than 4 hours sleep is probably not doing their job, because it's so consuming. And there is a crisis and a problem. You can count on it, Murphy's Law, every other minute. Right? It's not like you come on and say everything's great and everybody's looking at you going, okay, make a decision. With a writer, believe me, I'm not in any way lessening the importance and the dynamics that go into writing. I'm not a writer, so I applaud and respect and admire that. But it's a self-controlled environment. You don't have anybody beating on you and forcing you to decision every minute. And then you have these big superstars who tell you, I don't like doing that scene that way. The producers are saying, well, I'm not going to do it that way. The DP's saying, you know what, you're out of focus. And the actor's saying, I'm not going to do another shot. I'm tired. If you can't get out you're out of focus and you guys don't know what you're doing, I'm out of here. Has that happened to me? Exactly what I just defined. It's happened to me many times. So I would just say to you is that the directing is the most difficult. And I think probably in a certain way, I was challenged by that as something inside of me about how difficult that is, because we all know they're also responsible for an entire production which costs, if it's 20 million, 30 million, the average studio motion picture today is coming at about 60 million. So 60 million on a 60-day schedule, that's a lot of time to have to be totally laser-like and albatrossed into the process. So I would say to you that's why I'm more in the directors and the writers, but I love both, and I do have both sides.
Yeah. Are you still agenting?
Yeah, I tell you, we've had obviously a very interesting scenario go on, and I'm still agenting. But we've had an era where I think, I don't know how you all see the business. I don't know how long you've all been in it. And I really don't know your individual backgrounds, but I'll give you my kind of quick 3 minutes of the Becsey homily here. As we all know, the Screen Actors Guild and the Association of Talent Agents do not have an existing contract. It terminated about 4 years ago. We all know that there is a looming SAG strike, and there was obviously a horrendous WGA strike. The universe of the entertainment business, the way it used to be when I started, and for anybody who's been doing it longer than me, or relatively long enough to have perspective and an overview, meaning the micro of it, the overview of what's really going on, and underneath it, what causes all that, what inflames all that, or motivates or stimulates it, is the fact that corporate universe has changed the way we do business every day. We used to be concerned about the antitrust legislation, okay? Tell me where we enforce antitrust legislation. If you check in with the books on the states or on the government level, we've had, I think under the last administration, I think it was calculated 3 challenges for antitrust legislation. So when you see CBS, NBC, GE, Fox, they've all vertically integrated where they got everything on the communication side. Well, name me where they don't cover everything. So the competition has been that the market forces have changed, and we as agents, managers, whatever, have to adapt. You know the old thing about adapt or die. So that's what we're doing. We're having to adapt or die. So my feeling about when we say agent is that we're representatives. And I don't know it's an all-encompassing word, so I don't know what it means to minimize that the agent becomes one particular kind of mood or word versus just a representative, because I want to feel like I'm more than that. I want to feel like I'm all-encompassing.
Are you talking about producing here also? Is that what you're
I think it's whatever you want.
Yeah.
I think it's whatever you dictate to be able to access the revenue of what is really going on in the market. If it's good enough for corporate universe to do the way they do it, which they redesign the way they make money and profits, why isn't it not okay for us? So I was just saying is that I want to enlarge the perspective. I am so proud, that I've been an agent, but I just want to say that there's a lot of philosophical things going on. The forces are happening that we're going to see a lot of changes coming up, and that's going to be on both sides. We're going to see it on the agency side, and we're going to see it on the management side, and we're going to see it on the corporate side, and we're going to see it on the seller and the buyer side. And that's all I'm referring to, except there's a lot of things going on, and I think sometimes the agents get pushed into this little corner where they're limited by some of the rules and regulations of things they're not allowed to do. And I think that is caused why we don't have a contract with SAG. And I think that we're going to all have to figure out, like with the new media, obviously it was good enough for WJ to go on strike and say this is not good for us. Well, AK is basically doing the same thing. We're holding our own, and the agents at large are holding the position. Why? Not because of ego, not because we think we're right, but if you look at around you, everything is changing other than you. You wind up saying, what am I going to do? Right. If we're the last person standing, what happens? Everybody says to you, if you can't anticipate the market, then you're not a good business person.
Yeah, why are you the only ones restricted?
Yeah.
Yeah. So